Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show that extracts the essential knowledge from the data deluge so you can cut straight to the surprising insights. Today, we are undertaking, well, a really critical mission, performing a kind of forensic audit on sales performance management. We're not just looking at who sold the most, we are uncovering those hidden financial drains, the profit black holes that are, sucking cash out of otherwise healthy companies. Our deep dive today is focused entirely on how companies should properly evaluate their sales teams and, crucially, how you stop actively losing money on the wrong customers.
It really is the most important metric shift any sales organization can make. We're moving entirely past just gross sales volume, which, let's be honest, is often a misleading vanity metric. We need to understand true, measurable profitability. And today we'll be breaking down the specific hard data and the soft skills, the actual mechanisms that truly drive sustained, high performance.
Okay, let's jump right into the financial shockwave then. Our first incredible insight comes from the Seal Rite Envelope Company. This case perfectly illustrates what happens when you commit to what the sources call misdirected marketing efforts. Okay, so let's set the scene with Seal Rite. You have the sales manager, Rose Douglas, initiating this really rigorous profitability analysis of her entire customer base. She already suspected, I think, that her direct selling costs were high.
Yeah, she had a hunch.
But the sheer cost structure laid bare in the data was, well, eye-opening.
It's a harsh reality check, definitely. We have to start by establishing the economic baseline here. Seal Rite's direct selling cost per call is a staggering $110.
Wow, $110 per visit.
Per call, yeah. This covers things like travel, salary allocation, support staff time, all that. Now, when you know the company's average gross margin is only 25%, well, you can do the math. You can calculate the threshold for survival. That sales rep needs an average order for $440 just to cover those direct selling expenses.
Just to break even on the call itself?
Exactly. And even hitting that $440 mark, they haven't paid for any overhead. The rent, the lights, the back office staff, nothing.
So if you're a rep making multiple small calls every day, trying to service tiny accounts, you are essentially, well, a financial liability walking around. The company's paying $110 every time you talk to a customer.
Right.
And if that customer doesn't buy at least $440 worth of product, the business is completely upside down on that interaction.
Precisely. And it's the scale of the problem that makes this case so dramatic. When Douglas pulled the detailed customer volume data, she found this huge concentration of accounts that were simply impossible to service profitably.
Okay, get ready for this data because it's shocking. The accounts with an annual volume of under $1,000, and listen to this, there were 871 of them.
871 accounts.
They resulted in a calculated negative gross selling profit of negative 44.4%.
Negative 44%. Think about that loss rate. The selling expense for that smallest customer segment was 75.3% of sales.
So they were spending 3/4 of the revenue just to make the sale.
Basically, yes. And even the slightly larger accounts, the 842 customers in the $1,000 to $1,900 range, they were still unprofitable, showing a negative 3.6% gross selling profit, still losing money.
So we're talking about nearly 1,700 accounts that collectively are just acting like a financial black hole for Seal Rite. This isn't some marginal issue. This is a catastrophic resource drain.
It really is. You could almost call it managerial negligence disguised as customer service. The aha moment for Douglas was realizing these massive numbers of tiny customers were just consuming immense amounts of selling effort, that $110 per call, remember, and guaranteeing net losses. This confirms a really costly issue. Their entire sales system was basically designed to chase low-value volume instead of high-value profit. The effort was completely misdirected. The immediate managerial action, the data demanded it, was to drastically reduce or probably eliminate all active selling efforts to those 1,700 accounts. Just stop calling them.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly for our next topic, because once you've diagnosed that kind of deep financial problem, the natural next step is fixing the underlying sales behavior through proper performance evaluation. It's not just about weeding out the bad accounts, it's about developing better sales reps, right?
Absolutely. And that development is the core purpose of evaluation. It's about identifying precise strengths and weaknesses, guiding personnel development, maybe figuring out training needs, and ensuring that rewards and promotions are fair and objective. A good, detailed evaluation process helps the manager pinpoint exactly why a rep might be struggling. Is it a low daily call rate, maybe poor territory coverage, or perhaps their product presentations are just weak?
Yeah, makes sense. The sources outline a necessary 5-step procedure for this, starting with establishing basic policies like who evaluates whom, when it happens, how often, and this is where some more modern methods come in, like 360-degree feedback. That's interesting because it expands evaluation beyond just the manager
Yeah.
to include input from peers, subordinates, even clients sometimes, giving a much fuller, more rounded picture. And crucially, they mention management by objectives, MBO. This sounds key because it shifts the focus away from just generic job performance towards specific, measurable goals.
That's right. With MBO, the manager and the rep actually sit down and negotiate specific, quantifiable goals for the evaluation period goals they both agree on, they both sign off on. It creates mutual accountability.
Okay, so you've got the structure. Then step 2 is selecting the evaluation basis.
And this is where the core tension often lies, splitting the evaluation metrics into two crucial camps. First, you have output measures. These are the results, right? The quantitative stuff.
The bottom line numbers.
Exactly. The things the finance department loves. Sales volume in dollars and units, gross margin achieved, maybe broken down by product line or customer group number of orders, and key diagnostic ratios like the batting average. That's simply the number of orders you get divided by the number of calls you made, a crucial efficiency metric.
Okay, so that tells us what they achieved. And the second category, the input measures, tells us more about the effort they put in to achieve it.
Precisely. Inputs are also broken down. You have quantitative inputs. These are data points usually easy to pull from CRM systems these days. Calls per day, days worked, maybe the rep's direct selling expense ratio. And then you have the vital qualitative inputs.
Oh, the tricky ones.
Yeah, these measure the stuff that is harder to track but really essential for long-term health. The quality of their sales presentations, their depth of product knowledge, how well they actually maintain customer relations, and even things like personal attitude or resourcefulness.
But the moment you bring in those qualitative factors, you immediately run into subjectivity, don't you? Which has always been the enemy of fair evaluation.
Yeah.
You hit that classic problem known as the halo effect.
Oh, absolutely. The halo effect.
We've probably all seen it or even done it. It's when a general positive or negative impression, maybe the manager's just really impressed by how sharp a rep looks or how they handled one crisis really well. That feeling biases the entire evaluation, even if the manager lacks hard, valid data on fuzzy factors like goodwill or attitude.
That subjectivity used to be a huge problem. But, modern Salesforce automation, SFA, and customer relationship management, CRM systems have dramatically changed the game here. While the halo effect definitely still exists with those qualitative measures, technology has made tracking those quantitative input metrics, activity logs, email frequency, time spent on lead generation, so much easier, more objective, and continuous. It's much harder to hide sloppy input when the CRM is logging pretty much everything.
Good point. The tech makes inputs more visible.
And to really leverage both those quantitative inputs and outputs effectively, sales managers need a powerful diagnostic tool. The sources call it the fundamental performance equation. This isn't just a formula. It's really a way to break down sales success into its core components. Sales days worked X, call rate X, batting average X, average order.
Right. I love this equation because it lets a manager instantly diagnose a problem. If a rep's sales are low, the manager can ask, okay, why? Is it because they're taking too many days off? Days worked. Are they simply not making enough stops each day? Call rate. Are they ineffective when they get there? They can't close, batting average. Or are they just landing tiny deals all the time, average order?
It pinpoints the weakness.
Exactly. And we see the true value of this diagnostic approach in the Colorado Ski Company case. This is a great example because judging performance solely on volume would lead you to the absolutely wrong conclusion about who their most valuable rep actually is. So we're comparing 3 reps, but let's focus on Joe and Paula to see the contrast.
Okay. So based on volume alone, Joe, who covers the Rocky Mountain territory, he looks like the superstar. He's pulling in $1.2 million in sales. He also boasts the highest average order size at $2,400. Seems great, right?
Yeah, looks like the guy you want to clone. But hold on, if his sales volume is that high, why are we even concerned about him? What's the catch?
The catch is context. The manager must factor in the uncontrollable variable, his territory's massive market potential. It's estimated at $6 million.
$6 million.
Oh.
So when you put his $1.2 million sales into that context, Joe's market share is only 20%. His huge sales volume is actually masking some serious inefficiency. The deeper analysis shows his cost per call is way too high, $68.57. That's excessive for his role, especially compared to others. It's just hidden by the sheer volume he gets from a rich territory.
So where are the specific weaknesses?
The ratios expose them. He has a low batting average with the really crucial sporting goods stores, only 0.50, meaning half his calls there result in no order. And he has poor penetration in clothing sales, capturing only 18% of the potential in that category. He's basically coasting entirely on a gigantic market opportunity.
Wow, okay. Now let's look at Paula. She covers the smaller, tighter New England territory, and she has the lowest volume of the group at $520,000. So on paper, she looks like the weak link, maybe someone who needs coaching up or even managing out. Looks that way initially. But the ratios, again, reveal the real story. Paula is meticulous. She's efficient. She achieves the highest calls per day in the company, 4.8.
More effort.
More focused effort, yes. And consequently, she has the lowest cost per call at just $32.72. And here's the kicker. She also achieves the highest total percent of market share, 21.7%, in her territory, even though its total potential is much smaller, only $2.4 million.
So she's actually getting more out of less.
Exactly. The conclusion is pretty undeniable. Paula, despite the lower raw sales numbers, is actually the most efficient and effective performer relative to the potential she was given. Joe's high volume is merely a reflection of the wealth of his territory. This just underscores the core lesson. Comparing performance fairly requires factoring in those uncontrollable external factors like territory size and potential. You can't just look at the final sales number.
Right, that analysis of what truly makes a rep good brings us neatly to a strategic showdown about what should matter most when you design an evaluation system. Let's shift gears to Lori Foods. They're a wholesale food distributor facing intense new competition, and they have new strategic goals centered on greater profitability, better internal cooperation between departments, and trying to drive non-price competition, selling on value, not just cost.
And this sets up a classic philosophical conflict. It plays out between two senior executives who are debating the evaluation system for their field reps. And we should note, these reps already have a massive incentive.
Oh, yeah.
They're paid a significant base salary plus up to 60% commission on their sales. So they're already heavily motivated by volume.
60% commission potential. Okay, so that context is critical.
Definitely. On one side, you have Warren Gottlieb, the sales manager. He's championing what we'd call the output profit focus. He argues, pretty forcefully, that the evaluation must be based primarily on sales and profit contribution. His logic is, that's what drives the company's immediate bottom line. And since the commission structure already rewards high sales volume, he argues the formal evaluation system must focus intensely on profit accountability. This encourages reps to be more selective about what they sell and how they service different accounts, focusing on margin, not just dollars.
Okay, that's one perspective.
Right.
Focus on the profitable results. Then you have Jennifer Walters, the marketing manager, who takes basically the opposite stance, the behavior input focus.
Right. She insists that sales and profit should actually play only a minor role in the formal review process. Instead, she wants the weight placed heavily on specific behaviors that support long-term stability and the company's new strategic direction.
And what are those key behaviors she's focused on?
She highlights things like getting frequent customer feedback, essentially acting as market intelligence gatherers. Also, cooperation with the inside phone reps, promoting internal synergy, breaking down silos. And finally, just doing the timely administrative work reports, CRM updates, which reduces back-office strain and errors.
So she's saying these specific actions are necessary to maintain their market position long-term and support that push toward non-price competition, selling on value, service, relationships.
Exactly. Walters argues that you need to evaluate and reward those behaviors directly because they build a foundation for competing on things other than just having the lowest price.
This raises a really fundamental management question for you listening. Is it better to evaluate primarily based on the results, like Gottlieb wants, or should the process heavily reward the specific strategic actions that support the company's long-term health and differentiation, like Walters is pushing for, especially when commission already covers the result part so heavily?
It's a tough balance. When compensation already rewards the result so strongly, maybe the formal evaluation system has to be used primarily to guide and reward the desired behavior. If you only evaluate results, you might never get that crucial cooperation or timely admin compliance needed for sustained, profitable growth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You use different levers for different goals. Okay, let's wrap this up by looking at one final scenario that actually takes us back to Seal Rite, where Rose Douglas is facing a completely new evaluation challenge. She's designing the system for a brand new internal telemarketing group. And this new inside sales channel completely upends all the traditional evaluation methods they might have used for their outside field reps.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is how rapidly these inside sales forces challenge every traditional evaluation metric. Douglas is suddenly facing these core questions about how you even measure and define success in this highly monitored, rapid turnaround environment.
So what are the big questions?
Well, first, let's consider frequency. How often do you evaluate? One consultant actually suggested evaluation should be daily, or maybe even hourly.
Hourly, wow.
Yeah, capitalizing on the ability of technology to continuously monitor every single activity. But, I mean, does that really make sense? Or should it be monthly to smooth out the random, uncontrollable daily hiccups that might unfairly skew a rep's score? Daily monitoring sounds incredibly stressful.
No kidding. And the fundamental metrics must be different too, right? For an inside rep, do you focus on those easily measurable quantitative inputs like total time on the telephone, number of calls attempted or calls
Okay,
completed?
pivot.
Yeah.
Do you try to focus more on the quality of the interaction, emphasizing meaningful calls, maybe looking at the duration and outcome or the content,
Hmm.
rather than just sheer volume? Because if volume is king, quality inevitably suffers.
True. Easy to game the system if it's just about call count.
And finally, there's the really complex issue of comparison. This is the ultimate apples and oranges dilemma, isn't it? How do you objectively compare the new inside telemarketers who are handling maybe high volume, low average orders, managing both inbound and outbound calls, with the established outside field reps?
Yeah, the field reps have high travel costs, much higher average orders, and rely heavily on long-term relationship building.
It's completely different. The metrics suitable for one group simply cannot be used fairly to measure the other without massive, really careful weighting and adjustment. You have to ensure that profitability, not just raw volume or call count, somehow remains the central yardstick across both channels.
And the technology might make it easy, maybe even tempting, to record and analyze every single interaction for those inside reps.
Which raises its own ethical and maybe even legal questions.
Right. But even with all that data, the managerial challenge of designing a fair comparison and motivating the right behaviors remains incredibly difficult. Hashtag tag outro.
You know, the central lesson we can take away from all these scenarios, from Seal Rite's really devastating profitability analysis right through to that strategic debate at Lori Foods, is that effective performance evaluation absolutely requires management to move definitively away from that single, easy metric of just total sales volume.
It's just too simple, too misleading.
Way too misleading. You must adopt more sophisticated ratio measures, like that performance equation we discussed, to diagnose weaknesses accurately. And you need to strategically integrate behavioral metrics, like the cooperation and feedback Jennifer Walters argued for, to ensure the sales team is actually executing on the long-term strategic goals of the organization, not just chasing the easy commissions this quarter.
Absolutely. The real goal has to be defining success in a way that aligns behavior with sustainable profit. Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. If technology, through modern SFA and CRM systems, now makes it incredibly easy and objective to measure every single quantitative input, behavior calls per day, email sent, time logged on the system, you name it, does that mean the subjective, qualitative evaluation factors, things like attitude, resilience, or resourcefulness, do those become entirely obsolete?
Or are those uniquely human elements actually more important than ever for truly understanding the difference between just high volume and real sustainable sales success? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep into the economics of performance evaluation with us today. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.